I think that no matter which way that you go with things, either changing the name or completely changing the colors, always start with strategy.
Welcome to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast, where every week, Kirsten and Jeanne dive into the essential topics to fuel your business growth. From copywriting to course creation, mindset to video marketing, they've got you covered. Tune in for expert guest interviews on all things marketing and business, and learn how to work on your business, not just in it. So, get ready to unlock your business potential and take it to the next level.
Welcome, everyone, to our newest podcast episode. We are very excited to have Alexia Lynn with us today. Her company is Visual Vibe Design. So welcome, Alexia. It's lovely to have you here.
Awesome. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out your journey into marketing. And Jeanne's been in marketing for a long time, went to school for that, and has stayed in marketing from corporate to her own business. So what got you into marketing?
Yes. So I took a 2-year program when I was in high school in graphic design, and I really enjoyed it. And I love the design aspect. I originally in middle school wanted to be an animator for Pixar. Big dreams, right? So I wanted to do that. But then I watched a behind the scenes episode, and it's where they were matching the voices to the characters, and they had to listen to the same dialogue over and over again, like 1 to 2 second clip to match it for a couple hours. And I was like, I don't think I could do that. So I was like, I'll move on from animation and just focus more on design. So I've been doing freelance for a while, and then I launched my business to be more professional and so that I can grow and add on team members if I want to in the future. So more a business minded instead of just a solo freelance.
Congratulations. It's a different mindset, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You've got some awesome points to make here with us. We don't think about marketing and how it visually attracts people. So how do you explain that to your client?
Design is really about attracting your target customer. So an example that I often like to give is the difference between a luxury cleaning company as opposed to an affordable cleaning company, as opposed to an eco-friendly cleaning company. All three are cleaning companies, but they're going to have different design styles. One that's going to attract a luxury consumer, the other one that maybe attracts somebody that can afford that service or maybe is a little bit lower ticket. And then somebody that's eco-friendly is going to really be looking for that eco-friendliness. Maybe they have some green in their logo that's a certain color. Maybe it's more modern and minimalistic. So it really helps you attract who you want to attract, because you don't want to attract everybody. I think that's a common mistake that people make in marketing and design. You want to attract your people that are going to pay for your services and that are going to be the best fit and customer for you.
You start a business and you want to make money. And then you also have a heart of service. You want to help people. You truly want to help people.
Yes.
Think, well, if I target just women or women who are young with young children or women who are just in menopause, like I'm leaving out all of these other people I could help. But the reality is you're not going to help anyone if you try to help everyone with your marketing.
Yes. And that's another good point too, is people think that niching down or focusing on a certain demographic, you're not shutting everybody out. You're basically shining a spotlight on the people that you want to work with most. You're not shutting everybody out. You're not closing the door on people. They can still work with you, but you're really focusing in on the struggles and the solutions for a certain demographic. And that's really what's going to make you stand out in your field, in your competition, is you're focusing on a certain person. And when they align with you and you align with them, they're more likely to work with you and pay higher ticket prices.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that, again, but it's a fear, right? It's such a fear. But I love the way you said it's shining a spotlight on who you want to work with. You're not knocking other people out. You primarily work with women. However, we tend to attract men, but there are a certain type of men. We use more emotional language. So it's just, they're very different. Like we're probably not going to attract that bro kind of consumer, right? They're going to be more attracted to that type of marketing. And again, you want to work with people who trust you and who are going to be a good fit for you. I think that's another thing that's hard for people to understand is you don't want to work with everyone because there's some clients that are not the right fit for you, experience for you or for them. So
exactly.
Branding can do as well, is making sure that you're not taking on customers or clients you shouldn't.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I often reflect on my own branding, because when I first started the company aspect of my brand, my bread and butter of working with people is fun, bold, and rebellious brands. I love a brand that I can create a whole vibe for. That's why I named my company Visual Vibe. I'm not going to probably attract the 50-year-old lawyer that's looking for a very sleek and professional and design. I'm not repelling them, but they aren't my target customer. And that's okay. I don't need to work with everybody. There's enough design, there's enough clients to go around for everybody to have a piece of their pie, in my opinion.
And I think it's fascinating that there's actually a vibe for different colors that you use. Some feel warm and some make you feel strong. And I think that part of it's fascinating.
Yes, I love color psychology. And often people, they peg pink as more feminine, or a blue is more trustworthy, and purple is more creative. But I think that it goes a layer beyond that to what colors you pair them with, not just the colors themselves, because you can have a pink color, it can be a completely different shade of pink, and it can be paired with a different color to give a more luxury feel instead of a more vibrant and youthful feel. So it just depends. I love color psychology, and I could talk all day about that.
Our colors are green and purple. What does that tell you about us?
Yeah. I would say that you're, with green and purple, not completely seeing your colors, I would say you're more bold and vibrant. I also have green and purple in my branding, and that's how I go with my stuff, is bold and vibrant.
Yeah. So attracting your ideal client visually is super important. Yeah. We're going to talk about the importance of being consistent in your marketing.
Yes. A lot of small business owners don't either understand the importance of consistency in their branding, or they just don't know that's a top priority. For one, consistency shows your consumer that you're not a fly-by-night operation, as I like to call it, that you're here to stay, you're here showing up with the same visuals, and it takes 5 to 7 impressions for somebody to even see your stuff. So if you're giving off a different impression each time, people are not going to associate all those together. A good example of this is if your business card looks one way, a certain design, then you go to your website and it looks completely different. And then you go to your social medias and it looks like a bunch of pre-made Canva templates, which I love Canva, love their templates, but you need to customize them to be your colors, your fonts. And it just looks like all 3 different companies. People are going to they're going to take it back and they're going to go, well, I don't really know if I can trust them. They're showing up different in all these different ways. They may not say that, but that is how they feel.
Yeah. And not only that, I would say they may not know if they're in the right place. So like I went to their website and I was interested in looking at their Instagram, and I went to Instagram and it's like a different company. So
yes.
In the right place.
Exactly. And a lot of small business owners have which completely understandable. When they first start, they usually don't have the budget for good design, or they don't know how to implement their budget with consistent design. They don't know how to mesh those pieces together. So it looks like a patchwork of different designs, and maybe trying to figure it all out, which is good for trying to figure it out, but just keeping it consistent, staying with one thing, one color palette, one style of typography, and just rolling with that. And if you could keep those consistent, it helps your overall marketing.
So Alexia, Jeanne and I have been contemplating changing the name of our company, because six-figure business coaching, it really leans so much into the coaching, which we do, but we really have a more emphasis on marketing outsourcing. And that's what we've had for like 4 or 5 years. And so I feel like business coaching, people think one thing, right? Like if you're going to coach them. So we've been contemplating actually changing the name in January and starting fresh. But one of the things we will probably do is keep our colors, keep our branding somewhat consistent, even though we may have a different name. And of course, we route all of the things that we currently have to our, new website or whatever we decide to do. But I think it's interesting. So if we changed our name, in your opinion, let's change it to something totally different, but we kept our branding similar, how do you think that would affect people?
I think that no matter which way that you go with things, either changing the name or completely changing the colors, always start with strategy, because often we start businesses and sometimes they veer away from what we originally intended, and the visuals or the name aren't quite matching what you're trying to do now or where you're trying to go. And that's a good foundation for a rebrand, as you guys are wanting to do. I would say keep the name maybe in the same realm, or not change it too much unless you were going for that vibe. A good example of this is a local company here. They were called the Computer Hut, but they were charging higher prices. So they rebranded, they changed their visuals and their name. They did a whole rebrand, and they rebranded to Pinnacle IT. Out of Computer Hut and Pinnacle IT, which one do you think can charge more just based on the name, Pinnacle IT, as opposed to the Computer Hut? So that's a great example. And I love to use that because they've really improved their branding and they attract a higher ticket customer with Pinnacle IT as opposed to Computer Hut. So it just depends on again, the brand strategy on who you're trying to attract and where your business is trying to go.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we have a couple of different offers and we target different people for those. So that's been something that, again, you're always trying to, like you said, with strategy, figure that out. If you work with anyone who's tried to they have different offers that maybe appeal to different audiences, and how do you work with them?
I would find the similarities. Right now, I'm working with a fudge company, so somebody that makes fudge, and they've got 3 different consumer types. So they've got the consumer that's going to buy on an individual basis. They've also got the consumer that's going to buy for gifting, such as like realtors and mortgage lenders. So trying to appeal to that audience, as well as the individual consumer, and the wholesaler trying to get in stores. So those are 3 very different consumer types. So trying to find the commonalities between them and what would appeal to each of them in their own way. I think that's the way to build a brand based on different target audiences. And it's okay to have different target audiences. You don't have to go and just target to, I'm just going to do women-owned businesses that are bookkeepers, and that's going to be my target audience. You can have different target audiences within your niche, but I would try to find ones that are similar so that you can speak to all of them.
And I think that's one of the things we talk a lot to our clients about when they're creating their own content, they're creating their YouTube videos, or they're hosting their podcast. Being consistent and showing up as yourself.
Yes.
So important. And then having that branding where people visually see it, like you said, they know who you are. That makes them trust you more. And then when you show up with your messaging in your video or your audio content, you all want that to be in line with actually who you are and be consistent about that as well.
Yes. And it even goes a step further. Like you're saying, it goes just past the visuals. It goes to the copy on your website, how you show up, how do you talk to your target audience? For example, on my website, I don't specifically say that I work with bolder, funner brands, young female entrepreneurs, which is my target market, but I make decisions in my copy that say I'm your brand bestie. I want stuff like that. And I think I even have on my website, oh my God, Becky, look at her brand design. Who's that going to attract? That's going to attract a younger target audience that understands that reference. Doing that in your messaging without outright saying, I work with this type of person, you can say that in your messaging and how you communicate to people.
True. And that, like you said, it all boils down to the strategy in the beginning, which I know it has a lot of moving parts, which is why working with someone like you that does a brand strategy is so important. So that's awesome. Okay. So when we think about design, and I love the example that you gave about the computer hub, right? Because like you said, when you reference those 2 names, you felt differently about them.
Yes.
And so when you talk about design and how it can set you apart from your competitors, how do you go about explaining that to a client, and how do you think about a strategy around that?
Yes, it all starts with their unique selling point. So going back to the cleaning company is the easiest that I found for people to understand, because you can clean for everybody. But if you're targeting a certain consumer, such as eco-friendly or luxury or more affordable, you would want to start with strategy and say who your consumer is. Because if your consumer is somebody that makes $20,000 a year, you probably don't want to go with the luxury branding, because they may not be able to afford that. But if you're cleaning $1 million homes on the regular, you probably need to appeal to that luxury consumer, because they don't want affordable. They want it to be done right and professionally and have a luxury experience in your overall brand and messaging.
And it's interesting because I want to clarify this.
Yeah.
You are the budget or the eco or the luxury, you can all do quality work. You can all
Yes.
But what it's saying is sometimes when people are looking at, and I think it goes to like attracts like, the luxury. If someone has that big luxury home, they want the brand to be speaking to them. They want to feel like it's a luxury brand. But chances are the person that has that budget cleaning company could do just as good a job.
Oh yeah.
They're not targeting that person. And I think that's hard for people to understand. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not excellent at what you do. It's just that you're trying to appeal to that average client. And it's so fascinating because I feel like sometimes it's the smaller businesses or the person that's buying that $200,000 starter home, or that person buying a used car, they can often get overlooked. But the reality is there's often a lot more of them in the luxury market. And sometimes you're doing more volume, but there's also I think are different. Sometimes those customers are more grateful and a lot easier to work with than maybe a high-end customer. So there's the things to think about when you're looking at your branding and who you want to work with. I think that's something that we talk a lot about is, who do you really want to work with? And hopefully if you work with enough clients and then you have an idea of who that, you have a visual in your mind. I want to work with, Sally, because you got Sally in your mind because she was a great customer. And so you're building your branding around that one person.
Yes. And that goes into, I recently did a brand strategy, and her target consumer was it was like moms with small children. And I'm like, if you go hard into that, I think if you like openly said that you're targeting them, you're speaking to them on their level, I think she would get a lot of business by just doing that, because it's very specific and there's a lot of them as well. Just think about how many people, especially here locally.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the things that we talk a lot about, like we consider, I love the difference between an online business and a local business. But the reality is, I think people still want to segment people into online businesses or local businesses. But we often tell a lot of our clients, even if they're coaches, there's $1 million of revenue sitting in your own backyard.
Yeah.
You don't have to just go after people all the time online. There are lots of people that live locally that really need your help and your service too. And so in your branding, do you recommend people talk about that at all?
I think it depends, especially if it's a service-based business. Example, again, like a cleaning company, a plumber, or somebody that's out there and needs to be in a local area. I would say they focus local first, because they're not going to be traveling to a different state for a plumbing job through online. But I think it just depends on what their consumer is and how much bandwidth they have for their business. If they're a solopreneur, maybe just doing local is great because they can manage that. Whereas if maybe they have a couple people in their team and they want to expand out into more online sales, then they can do that as well, and vice versa. Maybe somebody that is a solopreneur but has a business like mine, that where we can just do services over Zoom. And I've worked with people in New Jersey, I've worked with people all over. And so I can do that online. And so maybe my focus is best on that because of my niche of being fun, rebellious, and bold. Maybe that's not necessarily found in my local market, but I could do that online even as a solopreneur. So I think it just depends on, again, it goes back to your strategy, who you want as your target customer, and where your customers are at is where you need to be. I actually just did a video that I'm going to be putting out this week, and it was about embracing a rebrand, and not just with your visuals, but your strategy as well. You can embrace your rebrand through strategy because businesses are meant to grow and evolve. If you look at the first Apple logo and what they were doing then, and you look at them now, it looks like a completely different company, but they evolved over time to meet the needs of their consumers and where they wanted to go. They want to be more sleek, more expensive, high end. That's the way that they want to be. So they evolve their branding and their brand strategy to meet that need.
Yeah, I think and I think doing a rebrand can be a lot of fun. You just have to put the time aside and, like you said, really focus on the strategy first.
Yeah.
If someone were going to focus on strategy, what would be your 3 tips to them when you think about, okay, a good branding strategy? What do you think are 3 most important things to consider in that strategy?
Yes, I would say your target audience, doing very in-depth research, feeling like you know them and you can speak to them. Also your unique selling point and your how you show up. So basically, it's almost the triangles of 3 is you want to speak to your target audience and be that person that your target audience needs and show up as them. And that's your brand personality, your brand voice, and your visuals can all help attract them. You also want to show your unique selling point, because if you don't have a unique selling point, then why would they pick you over somebody else? And it all comes back to the target audience. I think that's an underrepresented part of brand strategy. And that's really what I focus on, because if you can understand your target audience through and through, what they need to hear, what problems they need solved, you can build your business around that. And it's really, it's so focused in on them that they feel like you know them and that you can solve their problem. So they want to go with you specifically.
Yeah, we talk a lot about your transformation statement. Like, how are you transforming people's lives with what because again, I read somewhere earlier today, and I do have to tell you, I do want to steal your example of the cleaning company.
Yeah, I'm all good for that.
I'm definitely going to use that in a talk that we're going to do. But it was talking about Instagram, and it was talking about Nike. And it says, if you go to Nike Instagram, they don't sell shoes.
Yep.
They sell lifestyle. They sell athletes. They sell competitors. They sell people living their best life. If you think about the larger companies that are really doing well, they're not selling their product. They're not hawking that product. Really talking about what that lifestyle looks like for the people.
Yes. Yeah. And they're selling the result that people want. If I'm buying, let's say, Nike shoes or shoe companies, if I'm going to buy a tennis shoes, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to be that person. I'm going to transform my body. That's who I'm going to be if I have these. Like a lot of, for example, workout equipment is a great example of this, and workout outfits and stuff. Lululemon, for example, it's okay. Do you want to wear this and get that transformation? Do you want to be that person? We'll come buy this, and that will help you get there. That I think that's very important.
And it is interesting. We were just watching a video earlier today on identity strategy, like seeing yourself as who you are evolving into, or where your business is evolving into. And you're right. If you buy those tennis shoes, you buy those workout clothes, you're making that commitment to yourself as who I am. I'm a person that goes and works out. I'm a person who takes care of my body. I'm a person that eats well because I am doing these things. I also think it's interesting that when people buy things, they often think their problem is solved.
Yes.
Right? Those tennis shoes and the Lululemon and stick in the drawer and expect to get the results. You have to actually want to be the type of person who uses them.
But it does make them feel good in the moment, and it makes them feel like they've accomplished something towards that goal. And I think that's how a lot of the marketing behind it is supposed to work.
It is supposed to work that way. This has been fantastic. And so do you have any final things that you'd like to leave with our audience about marketing and branding? We can definitely have you tell them how to get in touch with you if they want to build a brand or they need to brand a business.
Yes, I would say that no matter which way you go, brand strategy is going to be very important. Understanding your target audience and your consumer and building your brand around that. Don't be scared to evolve your business. Businesses are meant to grow and evolve. And take your time when hiring a designer or hiring somebody to do brand strategy for you. Take your time and find the right person for you and your business. Every designer is going to be different. So just find somebody that aligns with you, your values, and feels like they can actually help you. They show results, all of those things. So that's what I would recommend.
That's amazing. Thank you. And how can they reach you?
Thank you. Yes, they can reach me on social media. I'm at Visual Vibe Design, and the same with my website. So go check out my website for some examples on messaging to my target consumer. So I would go with that. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Alexia. This has been so great and informative. And now we have to decide how we're going to rebrand. So if you want Alexia's help, please reach out to her, and we will put links in the show notes so people can find you. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation and kind of the back and forth, and it's been one of the best podcasts that I've been on. So I appreciate that so much.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely.
Thanks for listening to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode and you are ready to leverage video marketing on all online platforms, or maybe even start your own video podcast, then you need to check out the Done For You and Done With You program at themarketingvaadvantage.com and take your business to the next level.